Good morning. Thank you for joining me this morning. Let me focus the camera just a little bit better, maybe. Um, don't know that that's an improvement. As somebody said, I think I have a face made for radio. And if you haven't caught, speaking of face made for radio, if you haven't noticed on our Facebook page, I've shared a couple of links a few days back. And I wasn't thinking about sharing this with you. I can't tell you how to find them, but we are doing this as a podcast now, which means again, if you're familiar with podcasting, but if you're not, you wouldn't actually have to look at me. You could just listen, and there's several different places: Anchor, Breaker, Spotify, that you subscribe, and then each day the file would be automatically put on your phone, and you could listen to it, through your headphones at work or while you're driving or something like that, rather than having to stop and watch a video. So make that available to you as well. I'll try to remember to get the addresses, the links for that. I know if you go to Spotify and search my name, it will come up, and the podcast is called Walk in the Word. Had to give it some title, but if you search my name, it'll come up, and you'll be able to find it. I know on Spotify, and there's an app you can download or go to the web page, either one. But that's just an option for you if you don't have time in the mornings necessarily to sit down every morning and watch a video. You can take it with you that way, and so that's just an option for you. All right, let's jump back into the 23rd Psalm, and we'll start. We'll pick up in the third verse, and we're still looking at again what these first three verses. What one of my favorite writers, speakers, preachers, John Phillips, talks about here, that these three verses tell us how God, the life He gives us, how He can give us rest, peace, joy in our life. Then He talks about again how He gives us in the next verses, can give us peace in time of death, and then ultimately we have a sign of the glory that He provides after death. And so most people, and it's kind of an interesting thing. I don't know if you've ever thought about this psalm that way, but if you study it much and read many authors who write about the 23rd Psalm, you find that most of them, in one form or another, describe and say that this psalm is one who tells us how to have a rich, full life, how to get the most out of this life, how to enjoy God's blessings, how to have our needs met in life. And so it begins with the first verse, where we acknowledge that He is our shepherd. Again, that is the first, foremost foundational requirement to all of this. If the Lord is not your shepherd, then, just to be painfully, brutally honest, then you don't need to read the rest of the psalm. I hate to be harsh, but I would rather be honest with you. If you don't know the Lord personally, if you don't know Him as your shepherd, then you can't claim the benefits of being one of His sheep, which David describes in this psalm. So the first thing to have those needs met, to have that kind of life, is to know the Lord personally as shepherd. Then David continues and describes how God provides for him. We talked about that yesterday. The green pastures, the still waters, the rest. Now in verse 3, he says, He restoreth my soul. Now, I think most of us, when we read verse 3, He restoreth my soul, that is a very in English, in our language, in our way of thinking, I believe that He restoreth my soul doesn't have quite the bang for the buck that the Hebrew writers, the Hebrew readers would have taken from that word. It is a very strong word. He restoreth my soul. It is again a word that means to turn back, to put back. And so it is, again, it's a very common word in the Old Testament. It's used quite often, in fact, throughout the Old Testament. And again, it has that idea of bringing back. Again, it just, I don't know how to really, it's difficult to express, but it's just far stronger than I think maybe the idea of He restoreth my soul is relaying. The vision, the kind of the illustration that I have in my mind is, and around here you'll see this some, especially like in May or in the fall, when they have the big car show over at the Speedway. And then not just them, but kind of a thing, I think, for a lot of folks around here. You'll see people occasionally take an old car. And I mean, it's almost hard to even recognize it as being a car. It'll be a rusted up, no paint, no wheels, no motor. You'll see them sometimes, I said again, when they have the car show over at the Speedway, pulling them up and down the road on the trailer. And I mean, it has to be pulled on a trailer. It has no tires. It has no motor. Sometimes they might not have a door. I mean, they're just, they look like, you look at them and think, what a rust bucket. I mean, the only thing holding it together is the mud. But then someone takes that car, and that's what they call it. They call it restoring an old car. And you've seen, on the other side of that, you've seen those old cars that people have restored, and they are immaculate. I mean, you're afraid to get near them. You can see yourself in the paint, and every little detail has been taken care of, and the motor's been put back, and the tires. That for me, that's kind of the imagery of this word. It's just a really powerful word for He brings back my soul. You take that old rusty car on a trailer and put it in the hands of the right mechanic, the right repairman, and they bring that car back. And one of the cool things is many times, I don't know about you, but for me, I see some of these cars that have been restored. And when I see those cars after they've been restored, they are nicer restored. They are prettier when they are restored than they were 30, 40, 50 years ago when they were new. That's what God can do for a person. That's what God does for His sheep. He restores them. He brings them back and puts them back. He restores my soul, David says. So again, it's just an extremely more strong word, I think, than what we think of it. And so as we talk about then the Lord meeting our needs, how we get the most out of this life is to understand, to recognize that it is God who meets our needs, who will meet our needs. Again, to kind of paraphrase John Phillips about the 23rd Psalm, he says, sheep are not, they're not smart, they're not fast like a coyote, they're not ferocious like a tiger. He says, the chief characteristic of a sheep is they're stupid. You may not like that word, but again, that's how Phillips describes in writing about this passage. That's what how he describes a sheep. And sheep are one of the things they're known most for. They're known first of all for wool, and second of all for wandering off. Sheep, and they wander off just because. they don't have to have a reason, and so shepherds typically. Instead, if you've ever been around animals, you know if you've ever been around farm animals, a lot of times, like if you're moving cattle, usually you have to kind of get behind the cattle and kind of push them along and keep them. But with sheep, the shepherd would get in front and lead the flock. They would get in out, and the sheep would follow them. And the thing is, then when they're in that position, again, because of that, the shepherd can't always necessarily see the sheep, and the sheep are again, they're easily led off course. They'll wander off. They get distracted. They're sometimes like you and I. They I can remember in particular one classroom when I was in high school, that just the way the classroom was situated and the way the windows were and where my desk was, the teacher could be teaching away and something would catch my eye out the window, and I was gone. I was a million miles away, and sheep are that way, and so they have to be led. He says, "He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness." He is constantly again guiding me, and again, those paths again were not always the easiest path for the sheep, but they were the safest path for the sheep. Again, the sheep had no defense. They had no teeth. They have no claws, no horns, no way of defending themselves. And so it was more important that they have a safe journey than an easy journey. That'll preach, by the way. That it's more important that they had a safe journey than they have an easy journey. And I think God has the same ambition for you and I. It's more important that we have a safe journey than we have an easy journey. God leads us the same way the shepherd leads his sheep. The paths that he takes us on are the right path. They are the perfect path that have again been chosen by God. Not necessarily the easiest path, but again, the safest path. One of the other things that we read about shepherds and sheep is that if the shepherd knew he had a particularly bad sheep, one that was prone to rambling off, one that was prone to leaving the flock, he would stay right by that particular sheep, even to the point, and this may cause some of you to call the animal people, but even to the point that if a sheep was prone to ramble off, the shepherd would take his staff, reach out and he would, and I even hate to tell you this, but he would hit the sheep in the leg, even to the point of breaking the sheep's leg. Then he would carefully and tenderly put a splint on that sheep's leg, and the whole purpose was it was better to have a sheep with a broke leg. It was better to have a limping sheep than a dead sheep. It was better to have a sheep that couldn't run off than one on all four. Better to have one on three legs that couldn't run off than to have one on all four legs who was causing problem. And so again, a lesson there about how God leads us, and so he would lead them there, and he says he does that for his namesake, that he does that for his glory. Again, think about it, how that works. If a shepherd has a lot of sheep, if he goes out on the field with 100 sheep, and he comes back with only 50. Are most people going to look at that and say, well, that must be an exceptionally dumb group of sheep? That must be an exceptionally bad group of sheep? Or are they going to say, he's a bad shepherd? Well, God leads us, and he wants the best for us for his namesake. It is personal to him. Your well-being, your path is of personal interest to God. What a marvelous thought in that statement, that he does these things for his namesake. And so when we take these first 3 verses again that kind of describe the life of a believer, the enjoying life, getting the most out of life. It begins by confessing that the Lord is my shepherd, recognizing that our needs are met by God himself, then that it is him that restores our soul and leads our way. There are a lot of people. One last thought on this particular section here. A lot of people get spend a lot of time worrying. We've already talked about sheep enough. You know the answer to this question. Do you think sheep ever really worry about tomorrow? Do you think they worry about the coyotes in the bushes? Do you think they worry about the enemies that can come into their midst and harm them? No, they just do their thing. They let the shepherd worry about those things. They let the shepherd worry about the coyote. They let the shepherd worry about the green fields. They let the shepherd worry about the water. They let the shepherd worry about the rest. They just tend to being sheep. There's a huge lesson for you and I today. We need to learn just to put our confidence in the shepherd. The shepherd, because of him. If he is your shepherd, you don't have to want. If he is your shepherd, he will make sure you get the rest you need. If he is your shepherd, he will make sure that you have the green pastures that you need. He will make sure that you have the still waters that you need. He will make sure that your path may not be the easiest path, but it will be the safest path, and it'll be the best path, a path chosen just for you, so that he will be glorified in how your life turns out. I hope that encourages you this morning. I hope that helps you make it through this day a little better, with a little more spring in your step, with with a smile on your face, that others might see, that those you work with, those around you, will see and know there's something going on in you, something different in you, because you've realized you're being led by the Good Shepherd. All right, have a good day. We're headed towards the weekend, and hope you're already starting to make plans for where you're going to worship this Sunday morning. All right, have a great day. See you back tomorrow.